This morning, the University of Pennsylvania reversing course, saying it will now ban transgender athletes and strip trans swimmer Leah Thomas of her swimming titles. The school reaching a deal with the Trump administration, saying it will comply with Title IX, as interpreted by the Department of Education, and saying it will restore the records and titles of female athletes who lost to Thomas and send apology letters to them.
Leah Thomas pulling away.
Leah Thomas made history in 2022, becoming the first openly transgender athlete to win an NCAA Division I title. The win sparked fierce debate over fairness, including from some of Thomas's own teammates.
I knew there would be scrutiny against me if I competed as a woman. I was prepared for that.
Envision a university that, in its quest for $175 million in federal doles, finally decides to renounce the false legacy of a male swimmer who pretended to be a female athlete. The outrageousness of this situation is almost comical. It's long overdue to be discussed, and it's high time that we recognize just how ridiculous the story of Will Thomas, who got the whole world to call him Leah, really is. This isn't merely a sports giggle fest. It's a preposterous slapdown of woke, serving up a piping hot with a side of satisfying snark. So how does an unremarkable swimmer morph into a so-called pioneering woman overnight? Apparently, it was easy. It's grift wrapped in a glitter.
To President Trump and the Trump administration, what he campaigned on, what he actually signed an executive order on, which was that men will not be able to compete in women's sports, was acknowledged by the University of Pennsylvania. We've signed an agreement with them, and we hope that that agreement is going to be a template for other universities who acknowledge that there is no room for men in women's sports, not only during the competition, but also in the locker room and other intimate spaces where these women were required to be with males who changed in front of them. So this is a big deal. The university is apologizing. It is taking away the titles that were incorrectly given to men. It has stated that it will not have anything on its website other than the fact that they are complying, with Title IX. We are just very pleased with the outcome that we had today. It's an utter triumph for President Trump and for the administration, but mostly for the women and girls who will come behind the Riley Gaines and the Paula Scanlons and others.
Will Thomas spent years doggy paddling in the men's swimming scene, barely scraping the middle of the pack. His stats, yawn-worthy. Think participation level energy. Then, in a plot twist too absurd for a B movie, he rebranded as Leah, and poof, he was shattering records in women's swimming. In 2022, he snagged an NCAA Division I title in women's 500-yard freestyle because a lifetime of testosterone and male muscle mass is apparently the secret ingredient to winning women's swimming races. It wasn't the victory for diversity that was laughable. It was the very premise of his becoming a her that made this victory appear to be some kind of wrong joke. The fact that no one laughed him out of the pool speaks volumes about how far we've come in this dark, absurdist comedy. But hold on tight. His alma mater finally grew some guts and pulled the plug on this travesty. Counterfeit trophies are only sweet when they go to the shredder, as they deserve. And in July 1st of 2025, the University of Pennsylvania did what they should have done in the first place, the second that Will should have been dragged. They scrubbed every record he swindled as Leah Thomas. This supposed history-making moment wasn't just a tweak of the trans people are always right playbook. It was a full-on bonfire of Will's fraudulent glory days, restoring women's sports to, actually be women. His teammates, well, they've got some piping hot tea to spill, so let's sip it. What's it like sharing a locker room with a guy playing dress-up as your comrade? Pure hell, that's what. Will's former squad didn't miss words when the news broke.
Your reaction tonight, historic news from UPenn. Man, I watched that video back, Laura, that you showed in the intro to this segment, and I cannot even believe that happened. All the while, so many sat idly by and watched and actually reprimanded us as women if we even dared to speak about this. To say that I, of course, am grateful for Secretary McMahon, for President Trump, for even Attorney General Bondi, she's been fantastic at the Department of Justice on this issue, is an understatement. I feel vindicated. I feel like pigs are flying. I feel like hell has frozen over. So it is a fantastic day, of course, for sanity, for common sense. But I think more broadly for women, for humanity, for the little girl that I'm growing inside of me right now, that I will welcome to the world in just a few weeks. I think of her. I think of her future. That is what Donald Trump and, of course, Secretary McMahon and myself, that is what we are fighting for. So very, very excited about today's news.
Monika Burzynska practically threw a party on his grave, saying women's records are for women, not some guy in a wig crashing in the pool. Paula Scalana is still steaming about UPenn, grumbling, "Where were you cowards when we needed you 3 years ago?" And Grace Esterbrook really nailed it, saying future swimmers shouldn't have to deal with this harassment from frauds like him. The vibes that are coming out of the locker room now, a mix of good riddance and you're still on thin ice, UPenn. Picture the locker room tension, whispers, glares, and Will's obliviousness in his Leah delusion, while real athletes seethe. Some cheer the purge, others have called it a half-baked redemption arc. Either way, the mask is off, and the team is breathing easier without Will's sideshow sticking up the joint. The University of Pennsylvania, otherwise known as UPenn, attempted to smooth things over with an apology, but let's see if it's really worth the paper it's printed on. Can an insubstantial sorry really undo years of letting a fake female take the spotlight? Spoiler, the female athletes think it's a joke. The deal struck with the federal government forced UPenn to send letters of apologies to the swimmers, displaced by Will's wins. Cute, right? The president of UPenn, J. Larry Jameson, got on camera and monotoned a few fake lines of concern. Apparently, someone at UPenn decided it would be good to throw a bone to the swimmer castaways in the wake of the huge Penn Mothers Basement title. We later found out that UPenn doesn't want to be associated with trans women succeeding where real women couldn't. And that translates to an insubstantial apology wrapped around a large potato of so-called female privilege. And then the UPenn folks tried to cover up the stench with some perfume of Up It Stinks, and they clearly thought this was a good thing. You might assume the coaches would have something to say about all this, but that's not the case. They're as quiet as a mime at a funeral. When your star lady swimmer is packing a Y chromosome, what's a coach to do? Apparently, duck and cover. UPenn head coach Mike Schnur has been silent as a ghost town pool. No pressers, no tweets, and nada. But a lawsuit related to all this has spilled some beans. When swimmers cornered him, he allegedly whined, "I know this is messed up, but my hands are tied." Cry us a river, Mike. Imagine this guy twiddling his thumbs while Will Thomas saunters into women's meets, shrugging like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He could have fought for real athletes, but he didn't. This guy chose the spineless route. Will, Leah's act, therefore ran wild. Mike's silence is therefore a neon sign screaming complicity. The disaster did not stay poolside. It splashed into the courts, and it's a brawl worth watching. What happens when a guy in a swimsuit meets Title IX? A legal smackdown, baby. Title IX's whole gig is stopping sex discrimination in funded schools. Pretty straightforward until Will Thomas crashed the party. 3 ex-swimmers sued UPenn, the Ivy League, the NCAA, even Harvard, shouting, "This imposter trashed our rights." They demanded his records be turned into confetti, and in the end, they won big. The Department of Education dropped the hammer, threatening to yank $175 million in funding unless UPenn went back to basic biology. UPenn folded faster than a cheap lawn chair, banning guys like Will from women's teams. This isn't a slap on the wrist, it's a legal pile driver through Will's Leah fantasy. Bigger picture, it's a lifeline for women's sports, echoing that Trump-era vibe, facts over feeling. The law just body-checked illusion in the next week, and it is a beautiful sight. So what's the fallout from this train wreck? Let's bring this saga to a close. It raises one question that's hard to ignore. How long can guys like Will Thomas keep up the act of pretending to be women, Leah, without the world in general and the universe in particular calling bullshit? Penn's leadership seemed okay with that not so innocent act at the time, but this time it picked cash over the charade. Thomas's teammates disrespect him. They flipped him the bird. His coaches have ghosted him. And then the law came crashing down. What was unfair was letting Thomas compete, but only in the sense that it boosted his self-esteem at the expense of truth, fairness, and honest-to-God women. What was really cosmic-level ridiculous was the farce that the powers that be at Penn were running, and what it took to put a stop to it and reinstate some basic sanity with a fat bribe and some long overdue backbone. But I want to leave some ending questions for you. Drop your hot takes below in the comment section. I want to see that comment section blazing. First, do you think UPenn finally grew a pair by axing Will Thomas's Leah titles, or was this just a simple cave for a paycheck? 2, should we ban sports guys from playing as women or keep this humorous identity circus? And 3, is Title IX the last stand for women's sports against fraud like Will, or just a political chew-choy? Until next time, I've been Uncivil Law, and remember to keep it uncivil out there.